Hi everybody. My name is Ryabtseva, and today I will be talking about how you can use Application Load Balancer with Cognito to help you to quickly add standards-based authentication to your web application. And the coolest part is that we actually don't have to modify the source code for that. So, oops. Okay, can you see this? So on our agenda is, I will be briefly talking about Application Load Balancer and Amazon Cognito. Those are actually huge topics on their own. And through it all, I'll be demoing these services. So right now I have a little website set up on AWS. It has a landing page and a secret page. And the objective of this demo is to make sure that only authenticated users can see the secret page without modifying the source code. Okay, so right now, this is my current setup on AWS. I have Apache web server running on EC2 instance, T2 microSH EC2 instance. Like I said, it has two pages, index.html and secret.html. It's open to the world. Anybody can access it, and it lives in a single availability zone. So if it's a good starting point for my little web application, but you will see that it's flawed. If anything in the system fails, my application will go down. So basically, it has a single point of failure. And I'm not planning for success. If my web application becomes very popular and millions of users want to visit it, it can't scale. So what we really want is we want to put Application Load Balancer in front of many instances of my web application. It will serve as a single point of contact for the end user, and nobody else, so basically nobody will be able to access my instances outside of my Application Load Balancer, and ALB will distribute workload across multiple resources. I will be able to add resources and remove them as I see fit, and the flow of requests to my application will not stop. And when we set up Application Load Balancer, we will be forced to choose 2 availability zones at least, and that will increase the availability and fault tolerance for my web application, just in case, one data center gets flooded one day or something. So let's just set this up. Let's set up this architecture on AWS. So I will be demoing everything, in the 3 parts to the demo, so ALB is the first one. So go to AWS Management Console and just find EC2 service. Like I said, I already have my instance running with my web server. In the left nav, you can find load balancers. And I'm going to create one now. So Amazon provides 3 load balancers, really. And I will tell you a little bit later why we chose Application Load Balancer. So click Create. Give it a unique name within the set of your Application Load Balancers. So Meetup. And we'll leave it internet facing. We want requests to come in from clients over the internet. IP address as default. So every Application Load Balancer will have a listener. Listener checks for connection requests on the protocol and port that we define here. So because I want to eventually authenticate my users, I want to set it to HTTPS. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to choose 2 availability zones. Each availability zone should have a resource in it. I currently right now have one resource here and no other resource, so it's okay for it to be empty, so I'll just choose anything here. But you know, if this goes down, my website goes down. So. And because I chose HTTPS listener, I actually have to upload SSL certificate, and there are multiple ways to do that. You can either use AWS Certificate Manager, but to do that, you actually have to have a domain name. And since I don't have a domain name, I created a self-signed certificate, and there is a link to how to do that in the resources slide in the slide deck close to the end. So I'll just choose the one that I have already created. And I'm leaving security policy as what the default is. Okay, now I have to set up security groups. So I'm going to create a new security group. I'll call it Meetup Security Group. And I will only allow HTTPS traffic through, like so. Now we need to configure target groups. Target group is a collection of AWS resources, like EC2 instances or IP addresses or containers. And target groups can exist independently of Application Load Balancer. But Application Load Balancer will route traffic to the targets or resources inside a target group. So just give it a name and leave the rest as default. And target groups will have health checks. So basically, if any target inside a target group is unhealthy, or it doesn't basically it doesn't return HTTP code 200, it will be deemed unhealthy, and Application Load Balancer will stop routing traffic there. So register my targets. So the targets are basically the EC2 instances, well, EC2 instance in my case. So I choose this one, and I register it on port 80. By the way, can you guys see this? Well, okay. Okay. Next. So here you have your preview. You can change anything you want right here, and let's create this. Okay, successfully created load balancer. And that is it for the load balancer. So basically we achieved this architecture, except that I actually just have one web server, but that's fine. Now that we have this done, and we need to think about where are we going to store our users. So Amazon Cognito. So it's a secure, scalable, and fully managed user directory. And when I say scalable, it scales to hundreds of millions of users. It supports social federation like Google, Facebook, and Amazon, and it supports enterprise identity federation like OpenID Connect and SAML. It has a built-in customizable hosted web UI. So basically all the forms that you'd need to create for logging in, signing up, resetting passwords, all is given to us by Amazon Cognito. And it supports multi-factor authentication, which is cool. Okay, so second demo. Let's set up Cognito. So just in your services, look for Cognito. You will notice that Amazon Cognito actually consists of two components, user pool and identity pool. So the difference between these two is outside of the scope of this presentation, but I'll just tell you that user pool is a standalone identity provider, and that is what's going to give us the hosted UI. So I'm going to choose that and create a user pool. Choose wisely because you can't actually change this once you created it. So Meetup users. Step through settings. Okay, here you can choose how you want your users to sign in, either through username, email address, or phone number. I like to sign in through username, and I also like to have an option to sign in with my verified email address. Here you can choose standard attributes that you require. If you choose these attributes to be required, you will have to supply them during the sign-up process. So when a user signs up, I will require an email address. I will also require a phone number because later I want to do multi-factor authentication through SMS messages. And here you can add custom attributes. These will not be required during sign-up, but they'll just become part of your user's profile. For example, age is a number between 0 and 1,000. Sounds good. Now you can configure the strength of the password. So for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to keep it minimum length 8. But, you secure your passwords however you want. You can allow only administrators to create users, so then you don't have the sign up screen. I want my users to be able to sign up. This one basically says if a user has an account they never use since it's been created by administrator, it will expire in 7 days. Okay, so multi-factor authentication. If you want that to be required on every user sign-in, you have to set it required now. You cannot require it later. So once you created the user pool, this cannot change. You can make it from required to optional to off, but you'll never make it required again. And to demonstrate multi-factor authentication, I'll be using SMS text messages. And Cognito will be using Amazon SNS, which means we will have to create a role for Cognito to send those messages. And we will want to verify the phone number because that is how we're going to be authenticated. And let's create the role for SMS messages. Okay, next step. Here you can customize your SMS verification messages, invite messages, emails, even your from address and reply to address. I'm going to skip all that. Add tags to categorize your AWS costs so you can track them later. You can remember user's device. I'm going to skip that. No for now. Here we're going to add app client. App client is actually the entity that's going to be calling the register, the sign up, and the forgotten password APIs. So we definitely need that. And it's required by Application Load Balancer. App client. Here, Meetup app client. And we leave everything as default. Do not uncheck this. ALB requires that. Application Load Balancer needs this secret. Not all applications will. Like JavaScript applications might not. Here you set attributes, read and write, readable and writable attributes by your app client. And that'll become clearer a little bit, like in a minute. So I want all the attributes for my user to be readable and writable. Here you can customize the workflow of user sign up and sign in through Lambda functions. So we're skipping this. Here's our preview. Change anything you like. This is your last chance. Oh, you can't even change the name at this point. Once you type it in that one time, that's it. And create pool. I did not? I skipped that? Oh, thank you. Okay, well, thankfully I can edit that. By the way, you can have more than one app client per user pool.
So is the app client what's actually accessing the pool?
App client is what's going to call the APIs to register and sign up, yes. But our application load balancer will be accessing the pool.
Okay. Well, like, I guess if you have a mobile or a web, you can do 2 different clients and you create.
Yes, 2 different clients for the same pool. Yeah. So now we need to set up domain name for our hosted UI. It's actually a domain prefix here. So, and since it's a domain name, we got to check for availability. Okay, not available. I'm probably using that actually somewhere else. Good. So this is for the sign up and sign in pages. The last part that we need to set up is auth flow. So this is important for application load balancer to be communicating with our app client. So first we choose identity provider. So like I mentioned earlier, user pool, Cognito user pool is a standalone identity provider, but you could have configured others. Under federation here, you can see that you can choose other identity providers like Facebook, Google, and the enterprise identity providers. But I'm not going to show any of that. So I'm just going to choose the Cognito user pool. So this callback URL, the sign-in callback URL, this is the URL that's being called as soon as we successfully logged in. And that is being provided by application load balancer. By the way, let's take a look at our application load balancer. So we set it up, but I never saw if it actually completed. So here's the application load balancer right here. And you will see that it gives us a DNS name. I'm going to copy that and go back to user pool and paste it here. I'm going to provide the scheme HTTPS because that's the only thing we accept. And the URL that we want to access is auth2 IDP, identity provider response. So that is provided by our application load balancer. Sign out URL is basically where you want to navigate in your website as soon as you successfully sign out. I'll talk about sign out later. So application load balancer uses authorization code grant. It'll use this code to get ID and access token from our user pool. ID token will have claims about the identity of our authenticated user. And so basically, auth scope defines what kind of attributes our ID token is going to return. So if I say OpenID, it'll return all the readable attributes, all the attributes readable by the client. So remember I showed you readable and writable attributes? So that's where it's important. Okay, save changes. Okay, so at this point, Cognito is all set up. What we have right now is Cognito. It kind of looks like it's floating above application load balancer, but we have our application load balancer and Cognito. And what I want is that every request being routed to secret.html page. I want my application load balancer to contact Cognito saying, hey, is this person authenticated? And either let them through or actually ask them to sign in. By the way, I wanted to, if you look here, I'm putting my web server in the same security group as my application load balancer. So right now, if I reload my EC2, do you guys see this? So this is my EC2 instance. This is where my website is. So I don't want anybody to access this actually. I want that to be locked down. I want my application load balancer be the only single point of contact for my users. So in order to do that, well, first of all, let me show you the URL for application load balancer. I get the connection is not private because I created a self-signed certificate. So I say I trust it and I proceed. And here I am. So I'm accessing through application load balancer right now. I just want to make sure I can't access the EC2 instance anymore. So what I do is I go into my security groups and find security group that I use for my web server right here. So this is the security group I used for my web server. And in inbound rules, it's right now open to the world. I want to say that only my application load balancer can access it. So I'm assigning it Meetup security group. So that's the security group I created for my application load balancer. I save it, and if I refresh this page, it'll start thinking, loading, and eventually it'll say the website cannot be reached. So we're done here. So this is our application load balancer URL. Now we're just going to connect our Cognito to our application load balancer. And that is done through listener rules. So go back to your load balancers, and there'll be listeners tab right here. So here's the HTTPS listener was set up earlier. And you will see that there's view edit rules link right here. And here are our rules. Rules define how application load balancer will route traffic to the targets within one or more target groups. Every listener will have a default rule. Right now it says request otherwise not routed forward to Meetup target group. So basically it says just route, just let them see everything. We cannot change this rule. This default rule cannot be changed. At least the condition of it cannot be changed. So rules have conditions and then the actions they take when conditions are met. You can have, I don't know how many rules you can have. Many, if not infinite. So I'm going to insert a rule right here. The last rule, it says last, it'll always be evaluated last. So application load balancer allows me to route my traffic based on the URL or host. It'll actually look into the header of my HTTP request and get that information from there. So given that I want to secure just a specific page, I'm going to choose a condition path is. So I'm saying every time I get somebody wanting to access secret.html, I want them to be authenticated. And right away, application load balancer connects to Amazon Cognito. And that's actually, I mentioned that I would tell you why we chose application load balancer, is because it's the only one that provides user authentication and is seamlessly integrated with Amazon Cognito. So we choose our user pool, our client. There are some advanced settings right here, like session cookie name, timeout, and the scope. We set scope to OpenID, and you'd have to, I think, type the scope here. You can't even choose it. There's no drop down. And basically, on unauthenticated request, authenticate, and keep reattempting to authenticate. You will notice that I still can't save, is because every rule has to have a default action, either forward to, redirect to, or return fixed response. So I just want to forward all my traffic to my target group when user got authenticated. Forward to my target group. So, and the rules will be evaluated in the order that you see. And when the condition is met, these actions will be performed also in the order that you see.
That supports regex, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Save. Okay, so our secret.html is now secure. Let's reload our index.html and go to our secret page. Ta-da! Now we have everything. Forgot your password. You know, everything that's standard for the authenticated users. Sign up. And we're not stuck with this look either. We actually can go to user pool and customize our user interface. So we can either upload an image here, which will go actually in this banner, but I actually want to get rid of this banner for now. So I'm going to go and customize banner. I'm just going to give it 0 pixels. Save changes. It might take a minute to register. So if I keep on refreshing, oh, there it is, it's gone. Okay, so now we sign up. You will see that at sign up we require all the attributes that we set to be required. So I'm going to Kate. I created a fake user number for this, so don't try calling. Okay. And I set my password. It'll actually help you out as you're typing. It'll tell you that, you know, your password is too short right now. Okay, so I sign up, and it'll say we have sent a code by SMS to your phone number. So it'll actually go to my email. So just give it a second. Oh, there it is. Seven, and confirm. Okay. Oh, by the way, this code by SMS is valid for 3 minutes. So I better get it right. Okay, I got it. Okay. So here is my secret page. So we verified the phone number. Now let me demonstrate the multi-factor authentication. Oh, actually, let me also show you what it looks like in the user pool right now. So if you go into users and groups and refresh, here I am, and my status is confirmed. It has my profile here, and if I turn this on, it would remember my device as well. Okay. Now let me show you multi-factor authentication. So you will notice I don't have a sign up button. So I have to open a new browser for that. Okay, so if I, oops, go here, again, connection's not private, that's fine. Okay, now I'm going to try to log in with the user I just created. And here's multi-factor authentication. Basically, every time I will try to log in, it'll ask me for a code. Okay. It's loading. It's still loading. Oh, well, while it's loading, let me show you that you can actually invite people to your user pool, so you can import or create users. I'm not going to invite anybody, but basically you can supply their phone number, email, and username, and it'll send them an email, or yeah, I think it'll send them an email. And you can craft your email in the message verification section. So that, wow, it's still loading. I don't know what happened. I don't know what's happening. Okay.
Can you turn off two-factor authentication?
You can actually, I think, yeah, you can. So if we go to,
It says disable.
so remember how I told you if you want to require for every user login, you have to make it required a user create, but you can actually turn it off now or make it optional. And if you make it optional, you can actually then turn it on user per user basis. So we can make it optional. And then we can go ahead and in every user, we can just enable it if we want to. Anyways, still don't get the email. Can't open the email. Okay, well, let's try that we disabled. Let's sign in as a different user. Okay, so. Okay, I disabled it and now I can get in. So, oops. That was demo 3 of 3. Pricing. So, Amazon Cognito, there's no minimum fee, no upfront commitment. You pay for monthly active user, MAU. You are considered a MAU if you have performed an identity operation. For example, sign up, sign in, password reset, or token refresh. And you do not get billed after that. So all the subsequent sessions are free. And if you have inactive users, those are also free within that month. And first 50,000 are free. We calculated that 1 million users would be about $4,400. And that sounds a lot, but if you have 1 million users, you probably have $4,400.
Yeah, you're on the minimum free tier on your
Yeah. And for application load balancer pricing, well, first of all, it's region-based. I was demoing everything in North Virginia, so it is 2 cents and a quarter per ALB hour. And there's also this LCU measure. Basically, there are dimensions on which the application load balancer processes your traffic. New connections per second, active connections per minute, bandwidth in megabits per second, and rule evaluations. So it's kind of hard to say, looking at this, how much everything costs. I'll tell you, I've been spinning up application load balancers for the last week, and I barely have like $1 there that I owe. There's a great example on AWS Application Load Balancer pricing page. Might want to read through that just to determine how it all fits it into your case. Final step, the logout. Okay, so Application Load Balancer creates a session cookie that we could change the name of in the rule. It sends it to the client, so the client can keep on coming back to our secret page for like I can keep on reloading this, and I'm logged in, and it's because I have a cookie set up. I'll show it to you. It is in application. Can you guys see it? In cookies, this is what it is. It's right here. And in order to get rid of it, we first have to set it to -1. Does that work? Or just leave it blank. And then we need to hit a logout endpoint on our identity provider, which is our user pool. So set the session cookie to -1 and go to the URL that looks like this, but for your domain name, you put in the domain name that you set up in your user pool. Client ID you also get from your app client. And logout URL is the redirect URL that you want to go to after you successfully logged out. So you cannot clear this session cookie from your front-end JavaScript. You actually have to do it server-side. And that would be how you'd log out. Here are the resources that were used for this presentation. All the diagrams were done in Cloudcraft. I linked to how you can self-sign your certificate, docs for Application Load Balancer, Amazon Cognito, simplify logging with Application Load Balancer built-in authentication. That's what inspired this meetup. That's a blog by AWS. And pricing for ALB in Cognito. That's it.
Yeah, for the custom domain, that can't be the same domain as your web application, right? Because you have to get authenticated to get it, so it would have to be something different, like a subdomain or something else, right?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that.
Right, the thing doesn't make sense because you put it as your main domain, and you have to take it to that page, which needs to authenticate.
Right.
I think even for the cookies to work, it has to be part of the same domain. Or aren't the cookies tied to the host?
So it has to be a subdomain?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, you can use the same domain. Even let's say if you go to a Facebook or Twitter account, it does not send you to your account. It's still like Twitter account, Twitter.com. Even though you log in or you log out, unless you click on the sign up, it just in that case, I think you're just looking at whether you have an expired cookie or you have an active cookie.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the page where it was this login page, which was the URL dot whatever yes, if you want to turn that into a custom domain, not that one, but the
Gotcha.
login, wherever the login page that you end up going to.
Oh, okay. It's here, right here. Domain name right
Yeah.
here. Mm-hmm.
So like in a meetup.auth.usc, right? Like if you want that to match your web app, like it can't be your web app, right? Let's is it a subdomain or something else?
Yeah, so do you have any control over, like, so the actual forms that Cognito provides to you, like, they're going to redirect you automatically, and then it's going to be like an Amazon URL, I think.
But it's saying you have a custom domain, right? It says at the bottom there's an option to make that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
Custom
your own domain.
right?
Right. So
Auth subdomain, it says.
So it's gotta be subdomain. Yeah, that makes sense. It has to be subdomain because you can't make it your domain because that's just keep not authenticating.
right. Yeah, we haven't used our own domain on that yet, so
Like
we're gonna get ready to do it soon. So we'll definitely
So
leave a
the
comment.
domains like example.com, your custom domain would be off.example.com, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just make an alias for you in Route 53. Or
Yeah, I mean, if you have your domain in Route 53, that's an
Yeah.
easy way to do it, certainly.
Yeah.
We're actually getting ready to deploy this for a customer, like, very soon, and we do have our own domain name, and actually, so we can provide a feedback on the meetup with this exact example.
If you're gonna do that, are you gonna put it behind CloudFront?
We thought about that. I think you could do something similar with CloudFront. CloudFront provides the same type of authentication headers that Cognito provides. Or we have the Application Load Balancer. In our particular case that we're getting ready to deploy, we're not putting, it's only a small number of users. It's like an admin console for only administrators. So we're not, CloudFront's overkill. So that's why we went with the load balancer approach. But certainly if you were going to do a large scale, massive kind of, millions of users, then CloudFront probably would be a good choice as well.
Because that CloudFront is essentially free because you pay for the traffic, but you get a rebate essentially on the traffic from your EC2 and your application load balancer, and they sort of balance out.
Right.
So putting a like CloudFront in front of an S3 bucket servers, it said it doesn't cost anything.
Right. So I'm pretty sure. So CloudFront has the same type of rules that you set up with, like, you can do like authentication if it matches as regex, and then similar. We like this because you can really manage. We need to manage our specific users. We're not going to let people sign up for our particular use case. We are going to create them ahead of time. So having this ability to just create users without modifying any of our existing admin dashboard code was awesome for us.
So speaking of admin, I guess you have to use the API in order to manage users. Like if you want to have like a part of your application have like a user management, like grant them roles or something,
Right.
You'd have to do that through the API.
Yeah.
Or can you provide like, does it have an API for managing users that I can give to a client as opposed to let them get access to my AWS console?
Yeah. Well, Cognito has APIs definitely, but the question is, do you want to expose that to your clients, or do you want to have your application? You would probably have your application hit those APIs.
So identity pools, which how I told you that there are two sections to it. Identity pools will actually be like AWS token vendor machine for you, so you can access resources. AWS resources that you access in your application, and you can let users, you can choose which users can use that, basically. Not sure if that's exactly what you're
It's
asking.
not exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that would be like basically setting yourself up as like an OAuth provider,
Right.
and it's having a third-party API call into my Cognito pool and asking to authenticate users against me.
I can answer your question. I use Cognito quite heavily in this exact use case. So yes, you want to create your own app console. So what happens is during the creation of the user pool, especially during the app client portion, there's one of the checkboxes is basically an admin. I forgot admin underscore something all caps. Format, you'll see that.
Oh,
That will grant the client the ability to create users and to manage users. By default, a client doesn't have that capability because we're considered administrative capabilities. So if you allow, right there where it says admin, SRP off, if you enable this, you would then allow the client to manage users for you. So you can create users, set up the initial username, password, whatever you require, and then basically that will trigger the email out to them, and that's enable, disable. You can do all that stuff through the Cognito APIs, but you have to sort of enable that. But yes, you have to come up with your own administrative interface UI to actually enable that.
So then you could add like a role to the custom properties and then do the API if you want to roll this. And does that, and then that, on what, does everything get passed in the callback URL? Like if, when someone signs in, there was the callback URL, like if you wanted to get who just signed in, like that, I assume that provides all the data on the callback URL, do you know?
Yeah, you can get user profile.
Okay.
So typically in these situations, there's what's called a JWT, JSON Web Token. So basically, if you decode, and pretty much virtually every programming language or framework has in this SDK something to the library that will decode JWTs, and just unpack that, and you'll see the standard fields. So whichever sort of standard you take, Open ID, for example, would have like a given name, family name, or whatever it is, and email and password, well, not password, but a few of these other sort of standard fields. Once you decode your JWT, you'll have access to these things.
So that's in every request.
That's gonna be part of the sort of the payload of the cookie. Now, you basically you could ask, well, if somebody gets access to that cookie, couldn't they just decode the JWT and see all that stuff? Yes. So, but in order to basically to verify that the JWT has been tampered with, there's actually a code that is used to actually sign the JWT. So if you have that on your server side, you could use that to basically I don't want to say encrypt, but you can basically recode the JWT to say, well, does when I add this code to it, does it match what it's supposed to match? So basically, in our situation, we have a microservice on our infrastructure where each one of the sort of services, when they need to verify that the JWT that's being passed in the header was issued by identity and access management and tooling, which are actually built on top of Cognito. When they need to verify that actually was issued by that system, they can use like a shared secret on the server side to basically verify the JWT. Okay. So that means basically if one of those services gets that JWT and they can basically say, okay, this was issued by the known entity. If not, they can actually get to use it.
But like every request that's coming, that's authenticated through the load balancer, if I want to identify now on my backend who that logged in user is it just the JWT, or is there something else in the header that's being passed?
You decode the JWT, and then you'll get the all that standard field, like first name, last name, all that stuff. That will tell you about it.
So I think it's important to point out that like we made a simple example here, and for us, we have an admin dashboard that we've been using for a long time that we suddenly had to add authentication to. We didn't want to change the code. So this was a great approach for us. It's sort of like a single sign-on where you don't have to change your code, but you certainly can. Cognito has APIs available where you can verify or get the identity of, you can get the cookie, the information from the cookie, get the user's profile information. You can make API calls to get that details as well. Or if it's a JWT, you can just unpack it and look at it directly. But like he said, you have to verify that the token hasn't been tampered with by validating that signature.
Yeah, I mean, we locked it down all to the security group of Application Load Balancer, so we don't have to do that.
Yeah, well, right.
But yeah, you can completely skip Application Load Balancer and download an SDK provided by Cognito. I think they provide it for every language.
Well, right, and that's if your app itself wanted to get more information about the user and things like that, right?
Right, yeah.
We built our own sort of infrastructure around. So when we first started using Cognito, it didn't provide those nice UIs that you've seen that you can customize all that stuff. It didn't come with that version 1. So we built all of that, right, for the client side and the sort of administrative side. And we did all that through the APIs. So you can be as deep as you want. You don't have to use what GitHub wants. All the APIs are available, and especially with that admin tag right there, you enable your client to do all these administrative functions for you. But you're going to have to take consider.
That's cool. I mean, the alternative that we found really was just like Active Directory or some kind of other user management thing, which is just not where we wanted to go. So, sorry?
You go to Auth0.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was another option as well. But we just sold this client. We did a huge AWS migration. We literally lifted and shifted the entire application. This little dashboard is just a small piece, but it's really their entrance into their reporting layer, their minor controls that they have over this giant application that we built. So we really wanted to keep it within AWS completely.
And one bill.
Right. Well, right. Exactly. So, cool. Any other questions? No?
I had a question about the multi-factor authentication. So can you control like whether it uses that mobile number MFA or like an outside MFA? Like if you wanted to attach Google Authenticator to that, can you do
Yeah, you can, but you need to. Your user will actually need to set that up. So, for this demo, it wouldn't be possible.
that?
Yeah, we'll do TOTP,
TOTP.
but they haven't announced U2F yet, or Web Authom, or whatever how you pronounce that.
I heard that.
Yeah, there's a new one where clients sort of self-authenticate. It's done. Usually, you gotta use a YubiKey to control your stuff, and there's no server-side encryption. It's basically a key exchange between your YubiKey and the server. But that's pretty.
So again, the reason why we like this too is like, you all know that authentication and user management is changing all the time, and it's always a complex thing, but it's not even related to your business. It's almost like an annoying thing that you have to deal with on the side. So we love to decouple that completely from the application that we're building. So if you can do that as much as possible, I feel like tools like this really help.
So actually, I was a question about logging. Like, what happens when a user tries to authenticate like 1,000 times and keeps failing? Do you ever get a notification of that? Does it go to like
CloudTrail or something?
Trail.
Do you have three-strike something some strikes?
I didn't see an option for that from here, but don't know.
There's a, well, I don't know how that innovation is over on the ALB. We don't actually go to the ALB for our needs. But I do know that if you attempt to authenticate multiple times with Cognito and quick succession, it will not. And it does that. I think I've tried it like through scripting just to try to poke holes in it. Like the 6th attempt, the quick succession, it just blocked me. And basically, it gave me some weird error about a cooldown period. Basically, because I was getting it too quick. So yeah, it has adaptive sort of security measures as well. At some point, if it knows a user's coming from that particular user's coming from a location it cannot come from, right? So they'll basically trigger, if you enable sort of two-factor auth, they'll trigger that process. Even if they've caught it before, they'll trigger it again to make sure that it is the right user. So it has a lot of nice safety measures sort of built in. But yeah, you never quite know. You don't have control over them, which is, I guess, for better or worse. But it does trigger. Nobody knows what the exact circumstances are. I don't think AWS would tell anybody either.
I just don't. Well, sorry. Standard use case. Help desk calls, user calling in. I can't log in. I try to log in and it fails. So I'm wondering, how do I debug that problem if I can't see a log of like the user's attempts to log in and so the password's wrong or your account's been locked out or.
Is that the audit only to Cloud Launch then? Is that the feature that you're looking for?
I think it will have some user history.
Yeah.
If you go to the user field, like when you log in and all that.
Right here? Is that what you're saying?
Like device.
Yeah, it could have been enabled.
Oh yeah, we didn't enable it, but
Yeah.
You do have logging. Well, if you want to get sort of serious about being able to sort of catch issues, there's in the process of authentication, Cognito will actually has callback hooks that you can actually attach member functions to.
Oh, okay.
So as you're
so
if a user fails or you cannot
through
trigger
the
SMS
authentication
or
process,
something,
you could hook
yeah. So even if they succeed, in logging in, you can attach a limit to that. So you can get pretty complicated.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and actually, it's a good point because I mentioned in the start that we touched on a lot of different technologies in this presentation, and we're thinking about doing a deeper dive on some of them in the next meetup. And we wanted to get some feedback from you guys. Actually, we've got on our schedule down the road to do a deeper dive on load balancers in general. There's application load balancers, network load balancers. There's lots of things you can do with the load balancers. That alone could be a whole meetup topic. similarly, Cognito, this is only touching the surface. You know, you've probably done a lot more than what you've seen here today. We want to go and do a deeper dive on Cognito as well. We can get into a lot of these kind of things and some of the management of all your users and what you do with it. And then the third thing that we still have on our roadmap is AppSync, which is pretty new, but we like it a lot because it's I don't know if anybody's familiar with GraphQL. It's a neat, it's like an alternative way to, you know, instead of REST API, this is more of like a data query. You can specifically ask for specific types of JSON and do filters, and it's a really neat way of syncing the data from your back end to your front end, whether it's a mobile app or a website. And it's all kind of managed and built into AppSync. We've been using that recently on a project that we're working on right now for a client. So those are the three things that we're thinking about doing next. And you know, any feedback, you know, from you guys is certainly welcome. You know, you're thinking Cognito or?
No, I mean, I personally would be interested in like ECS and Fargate.
Yeah.
Some Docker stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we run some Docker tests where we have like a sense of the use. I know Fargate's fairly new.
Right.
Do you set presentations?
We did ESC recently. ECS, sorry. We did ESC recently. I think. Rob, did you do it? Or no?
No, Dan did it.
Yeah, Fargate. We did that.
Oh, you did that. Okay.
We have a video. Is that we have a video
Yeah,
for it
so-
posted online, so you can just go to our YouTube page. We put all of these online. You know, we're recording them, and we got the screencast as well. So we called it Fat Lambdas because we ended up using the container service a lot for some processes where we were running into the time limit of lambdas. So we did our own lambdas. We call them Fat Lambdas. So, but in general, I mean, you know, just a quick show of hands. I mean, are most of the people here developers, administrators? What kind of role do you guys normally fill?
Engineer.
Developers,
Scaffolding.
cool. Admin, sysadmin,
And we're DevOps.
DevOps, right? Both, all the above. Yeah. So yeah, all right. Well, I mean, no, this is good. I mean, this is a good discussion. I think, you know, those are three of the topics that we plan to kind of have in, you know, upcoming meetups. Any other suggestions? We did do the, you know, ECS already, but we can do more. Check it out. But any other suggestions, you know, send it to us via the meetup page.
I think the load balancers go more in depth than that. Will tie in well with this. And I think it's good that whatever you all are working on and where your strengths are, is where you're going to be able to best, you know, transmit that knowledge out to us.
Sure.
So I mean, if we ask for something off the wall that you've never touched, then you know, you're not going to waste the time to go digging into that.
Oh, sure.
Business case for it. So,
Right.
but if this, I like the way, like you said, that you can bolt this onto the front of an existing solution that you have. But I think, personally, load balancers, I think, and understanding, and I'm intrigued by using this with load balancers in front of containers.
Yeah.
You know, not just EC2 instances, and
Interesting. Okay.
seeing whether it's doing containers within EC2 instances just with Docker, or doing Kubernetes or Swarm or ECS or something like that. Whatever it is, this should work the same.
Yeah.
You know. So.
I believe Cognito attaches in the same way to CloudFront and API Gateway.
Yeah.
So all three services work approximately the same way.
Right.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done a topic on API Gateway in the past. We've done a whole serverless end-to-end with, you know, static HTML and JavaScript in S3, API Gateway, Lambda for authentication. So if anyone's interested in that, I think we should have that on our YouTube as well.
What's the name of the YouTube channel?
Thorn Tech, I believe, right?
Thorn Technologies.
Yeah. Thorn Technologies, yeah. So, we'll post some links on the meetup page as well.
Yeah, thanks for putting the resources at the end of this one. That's good, always to have at the end of the presentation.
Cool. All right, well, thanks, Kate.